The Morning Sports Desk, available on demand on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and WadenaRadio.com.
It is the Morning Sports Desk on a Monday, the 16th of September. I'm CJ Baumgartner. There's Corey Tackman. Corey, let's just get this thing started off on the right foot, okay?
Okay. Yeah. What do we do?
How good does it feel to have the Minnesota Vikings be 2-0, beat the top team in the NFC, the San Francisco 49ers, and by the way, because Detroit and Chicago lost yesterday, you are now the sole owners of first place in the NFC North.
Yeah.
Just feels so good.
That was fun, wasn't it? They're playing so much better than I thought that they had in them. I think we talked about it last week, a week ago at this time, like, hey, okay, cool. You beat the Giants, you beat up on them. Good. That team's going to have the number one pick. They stink. The New York Giants do. And Brian Daboll's going to be the head coach for someone else next year, or an OC for someone next year. But things are not good in New York. How do you actually play against a team that can actually play football? And man, obviously there are some standout highlight plays from this game that we can talk about if we want. But I think the thing that stood out to me most, CJ, was that defense, man, they are disruptive.
They get after it. They are game wreckers. They are they just are nasty, maybe isn't the right word, but there's a toughness to them. It's not, again, 2 years ago, Ed Donatell, the defense was bad, but even just the style was hey, we'll sit back, we'll wait for you to make a mistake, and we'll capitalize, whatever. This is a Brian Flores, we're coming in, and we're coming to wreck your life. And They made Brock Purdy miserable. It's the Sam Darnold seeing ghosts. They made Brock Purdy see ghosts. In fact, there's a clip after the game. They had Darnold and Purdy talking with each other, and the camera was fixated on him because they were teammates last year, and they've talked about they were friends and stuff like that, and they've come to respect each other and stuff like that. And then you could hear after the attack with Darnold, he spun around. Brian Flores was behind him, and he basically went, "That scheme is crazy, bro." That's what direct line. Yeah. He looked at Flores you had me confused all game long.
Yeah, they play really fast. You and I talked about him earlier, but I just love what Blake Cashman is doing. It just seems like if there's a big play to be had on the defensive end, Cashman is involved in some way, shape, or form, even though he might not end up with the Van Ginkel pick six against the Giants or the interception in this game. He's the one who broke up the pass. They're really fast, and they get into people's faces really quickly. And there's a lot of them. Wherever the ball ends up, there's more Vikings players there than the other team's players there. As a matter of fact, I watched some of the Sunday night game last night, and I thought the same thing about Houston. Oh my gosh, this defense for Houston is they're just blowing things up all the time. And it hadn't even occurred to me that the Vikings and the Texans are playing next week. That game's going to be a bloodbath, man.
It's going to be just two teams punching each other in the face over and over and over again. And I think, remember, we talked about all last year how good of a job Brian Flores was doing with no players, right? The Vikings defense had nobody outside of Danielle Hunter and Harrison Smith. There was, Josh Metellus made some nice plays here and there, and same with Cam Bynum, and Ivan Pace did some nice things. But again, there was no high-end talent on that defense outside of Danielle Hunter, and basically teams could triple team him. Who's the best pass rusher on the Vikings? I don't know, because they're all tied. They're all so similar. How do you stop one of them? Brian Flores blitzed 20% of the time against the Giants. Very minimal, because they didn't have to. And he blitzed last year around 60, 70, 80% of the time. Basically having to he was playing Madden, and he had to do engage 8 every single play. Otherwise, it was just over. And by the end of the year, they couldn't get any pass rush, even still doing that. And that's why they got gashed and gashed and gashed. And Brian Flores made chicken salad with chicken, what, a year ago. Now what happens, and we talked about this all winter and spring and summer, what happens when you actually give him defensive players to work with? And I know the secondary has its question marks, although Stephon Gilmore has played nice and Harrison Smith has had a couple nice games so far. But like this front seven is so good that we're not talking about the secondary at all right now. Because these guys blitzing 4, they get pressure. They bring in a 5th, 6th guy. They typically bring maybe 5 guys. They're only sending 1 blitzer and they're getting pass rush, which means you still have guys back who can do things. Overall, this is just Brian Flores now has his defense with his players, and they're just wrecking right now. It's fun.
It's really fun, and they're better. As a matter of fact, I sent a text message to you and Zeke last night because you guys were both really excited about what this defense could potentially be, and just believed in some of those things. And you guys are you're both correct 8 quarters into this football season. All of those names have made an immediate impact on the overall quality. You mentioned like Metellus had a nice season a year ago, but you're talking about a defensive back, and those guys are just left on islands all the time guessing because the offensive player knows where they're going. The defensive player has to react to that. And that means the offensive player is going to win most of the time. Well, they've been able to take some of the guesswork out of what's happening in the defensive secretariat. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Secondary. And because of what they're able to do up front and just kind of wreak some havoc. And like I said before, they seem so fast. They get to everything really quickly. So that part, just that unit in and of itself is obviously very fun. But I mean, come on, 97 yards. Darnold the JJ, are you kidding me?
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Are you talking about like some kind of play? That the defense made or that the offense made? Are you talking about some kind of big play that maybe Justin Jefferson would be able to make? Like I don't know, maybe something like this.
And his impact so far on the Viking defense, 2nd down 9. Darnold getting messy, going deep, and he's got Jefferson. It's a foot race downfield with Brown. Shifting gears. Getting a block. That's 6. 97 yards. Holy smokes.
97 yards. Holy smokes. That Kevin Harlan, man, 10 out of 10. Because that's basically the entire 97 yards. Holy smokes.
How about at the beginning when he goes, Darnold getting messy?
Getting messy. Oh, I mean.
It was awesome, man. Like just a flick of the wrist. It was like a 55 yards in the air. I mean, just a cardinal sin by the 49ers defense. Like, don't let anybody get behind you, obviously, in the first place, let alone Justin Jefferson. What are you doing? We've watched and seen now that highlight plenty of times. There's tons of stuff on social media. You and I both were basically, it was a race to see who could get to this story first a little earlier this morning. But we both were like, Naylor was wide open on that play too. and he was. Can I add just one quick thing to that sure. was impressive? On social media yesterday during that game, obviously Darnold got a lot of love for that. JJ gets a lot of love for that. The other person who got the most love for that play was the official, the back judge. And it was like, look at this guy run a 4.240 to keep up with this play. And
there's a couple former players that were like, look at his hips turn. Like on that final, like he had the hip turn and everything. They're like props, man.
Former D2 running back. So that guy can legitimately fly. That guy can legitimately run. And I saw someone even break it down like, look at the hip turn. Look at him get down the field. Look at him understand that he's potentially going to be in the way. So he turns on the jets to get out in front of the play. And then look at him stop right on the goal line because there might be a play there and he needs to be in position. Just like 10 out of 10 job from that official on that. And we're used to making fun of referees for being not able to keep up with stuff.
or sometimes giving the Vikings, like taking an interception away from the Vikings, like that time a couple of years ago.
He outran NFL players to get down the field. It was awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, usually they're just getting in the way of Cam Bynum in the back of the end zone in Washington or something like that.
I hate him. That was awesome. Like, I mean, obviously that's the highlight of the day. Probably is that one. But
there's so much that if you write a book on this game, it's like 50 chapters, right? Like there's so much happened. CJ Ham punt block. Brock Purdy has an interception that's technically a fumble because it just slipped out of his hand. Aaron Jones fumbled at like the 1 yard line. Sam Darnold throws a bad interception. Like there's just so many different plays. The Vikings, after giving up their first touchdown of the game, Sam Darnold leads a 2-minute drill to get a field goal at the end, and then you get the ball back to start the half, like making it a chip shot for Will Reichert. Vikings' new kicker, Will Reichert, 3 for 3 on kicks. Like there's so much in this game that happens, so much you can talk about. And I think, we've talked about the defense. They're great. They don't win that game if the defense doesn't play the way they do and turn the Niners over 3 times, but then also 4 if you count the goal line stand they had early in the game with Van Ginkel, who's another player who's just been everywhere, making plays, and Harrison Smith having a nice game again. There's a lot of stuff that Justin Jefferson got hurt. Nick Bosa got hurt. Like Jefferson has a quad contusion, so he's just got a big old bruise because both teams had their own players roll onto them.
Right.
So, like, there's so much that happened in this game. I'm trying to cover everything because I want to talk about, Corey, this throw from Sam Darnold, because the Justin Jefferson throw is impressive. Don't get me wrong. That's the number 1 throw of the game. I'm not trying to take anything away from that.
But to lay it out there, right?
Right.
Jefferson's outrunning everybody. Just go lay it out there for him to get it. That's all you have to do.
F it, Justin Jefferson's down there somewhere. Sam Darnold, probably. Like, that's exactly what happens. This throw won them the game, and here it is.
Beauty to the 28, first down. What a throw. What a throw by Darnold.
Well, I just talked about the bunch formation, how it can cause some confusion. That time they motion across the field into that bunch formation.
Beauty.
Just
to
look
the
at that
28,
throw,
first
Corey.
down. What a throw.
Look at that throw from Darnold.
Third throw, right?
Right. Like that, they just are in such a good position to make it's 3rd and 8. And it looks like you go, oh, darn, it's Sam Darnold. I get it. You're playing the 49ers. Make them burn a timeout and then punt the ball, and defense hold them, try and avoid the field goal, maybe take your chances in overtime, whatever. And then Darnold just says, no, I'm calling game. And then that's where they get the ball. They hang on to it. They burn a little bit more clock. They kick a field goal, and the Niners essentially can't do anything. They're down 2 scores with no timeouts and 2 minutes to go. And that's a throw. Jalen Naylor, no Justin Jefferson on the field. He was hurt. No Jordan Addison. Aaron Jones wasn't on the field. No TJ Hawkinson. Your wide receivers are Jalen Naylor, Trent Sherfield, and Brandon Powell. Your tight ends are Johnny Munt and Josh Oliver. And you go on the field and you throw that ball. Won them the game. I just am. Darnold is going to have his flaws, but the Vikings are cooking right now.
It was great. It was awesome too, because I remember I need to get into television football production apparently, because when he made the throw, it was obviously an awesome throw, and from the sideline view, it looked like an impossible throw. Like, oh my gosh, way to thread the needle. And I'm so happy that they showed that replay from behind the line of scrimmage, because first of all, Naylor was wide open. I know there were 3 defenders around, but and it took a perfect throw, but it was like not Darnold was able to do that. And it felt like not every quarterback's probably able to throw that back shoulder up the seam, because the linebacker's not looking like Darnold. Maybe we're giving him too much credit. I don't know, but the linebacker wasn't looking yet. But you have to throw it back shoulder for when he turns around, because otherwise it's a super easy interception, right? Like it was everything that could have gone right on that play went right on that play, and it looked super cool. And you're right, that was probably the throw of the game, ability wise, context wise, where we were in the game. It was a great catch. Those back shoulder catches, I don't think I think NFL wide receivers make those catches look much easier than they actually are. That was a really nice catch with people around you. Again, there were 3 defenders all right there. The guy knows he's going to get hit.
He just kind of has to go down, slide, grab it. Like that's, I mean, it's again, a play that looks easy by NFL wide receivers, but it looks easy because only the top 1% of football players on the planet can do it. And they make it look easy. And that's, again, it's a throw, like you mentioned, that's a throw that only a quarterback who's got a little dude in him can do. And Sam Darnold has proven he's been a dude.
He's got a little dude in him?
He's got a little dude in him. You know what I mean? He's got is a little man inside of his stomach. He accidentally ate him.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
All right. So I have, if I may, very quickly.
Right.
I have just one important nitpick.
Okay.
That I'm willing to disclaimer away by saying we're still only week 2 here.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just talking about things that are early season things. Man, oh man, do I not like these turnovers. I just don't. They're brutal. And every time the Vikings have turned the ball over again this year, albeit way fewer than a year ago, they've turned the ball over half as many times as they did in single games in the early season a season ago. But they're happening in these brutal moments. And Dallas Turner falling into the end zone on that punt down at the goal line is the sort of thing that makes old football me want to headbutt him without a helmet on. You know what I mean? Like where you grab the guy by the face mask and you look into the soul and be like, what are you doing? It's that sort of stuff that they have been able to get away with now for the past couple of weeks. And it is early, but got to knock this stuff off, man. I can't, as fun as all of this is, I'm automatically, as a football fan, I've been coached by every NFL franchise in the league. This is 1 week at a time. We're just on to the next week. I am, as a fan, on to the next week. That stuff's got to stop. It's got to.
Well, and being on to the next week, if you do that against Houston, there's a good chance you'll lose because Houston is a good team. I like the 49ers. It doesn't get any easier. Everybody watched them on Sunday night. That defense is legit. CJ Stroud's got some growing pains with the new offense, new running back, Stephon Diggs in the picture. Like, they got some stuff they got to figure out, but they're another week into it. They're like, Diggs is going to be motivated. His first game back in Minnesota since being traded. Like, this is going to, like, Danielle Hunter is a wrecker. Again, like, this is going to be something. Here's my one question, then we'll wrap it up on the Vikings, Corey. Because I agree with you. And by the way, Vikings are 19-0 in the Kevin O'Connell era when they either win or are tied in the turnover battle. 19-0.
It's not a hard game.
Not a hard game.
Most teams have winning records when they win the turnover battle.
Right. And by the way, the Vikings tied the turnover battle with the 49ers yesterday, which is important for that. It's, again, last year, they turned the ball over and lost because their defense couldn't generate turnovers. And turnovers are kind of fluky. Interceptions are fluky a little bit, because it's dependent on the quarterback throwing you the football. But a fumble, a turnover on downs, like some of this other stuff, the Vikings defense was able to bail them out of some of these issues.
Yep.
Which is what sank them last year. But yeah, you can't coast on that, which I think we agree on.
You can't turn the ball over at the goal line. Like, you can't fumble there.
Right.
You can't throw an interception at the 25-yard line. You can't do it.
Your defense was able to turn them over on downs at the goal line and neutralize. Like, they're able to bail you out a little bit, but yeah, you don't want to be playing with fire.
It's 14-point swing if you do that.
Right, exactly. The Vikings could have coasted to a win in the third quarter if they didn't turn the ball over.
But it's fine. Like, that's a nitpick.
Right, exactly.
So
I think here with Sam Darnold, and I'm going to get this out of the way, and then I'm going to ask you this question. With Sam Darnold, he's had 2 great games. He's played great games in his career before, albeit not against this level of competition, but he's played good games in his career. He's had good stretches early, and then teams get tape on him and figure out stuff and ways to trick him and whatever. So that's still on the table. He still can turn into a pumpkin at any moment, but he's played well. And when you look at the Vikings, they also went 2-0 with Josh Dobbs early on, and then teams figured him out. So we'll see how this thing goes. It's only 2 weeks. I get that. But Corey, does this change? Do these first 2 wins change your expectations for the Vikings? Is your win total, I think you had them at 7 wins. Does that win total change, or are you hanging firm for now?
I might have even had them at 6 when we went through it. I
had them at 8 and 9.
I went through it twice. I went through it once, the schedule once with you. I think I had them at 6, and then I went through it with some friends of mine, and I got to 7. So whatever. I think their over under for the year was 6.5. Well, there's certainly, I don't know if it changes what I think for their drastically, what it changes my opinion on their win-loss, right? I don't know if drastically we're talking about different totals. Maybe it means they get to 8 wins now. What it does mean, though, is I didn't think they were going to be fun, like that fun to watch. I didn't think they were going to be miserable to watch. Like, I think if you're a Giants fan, that's just going to be...
Don't even bother putting the TV on.
Just an abhorrent, miserable slog of a season.
Go to the pumpkin patch with your wife. Don't watch football on Sunday.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I didn't think the Vikings were going to be like that. I thought they were going to be uninteresting and mediocre at best. That's all. A
lot of what they were last year.
Yeah, kind of. They're clearly just more exciting than that. And it doesn't mean they're going to win, but it does mean, barring your entire offensive, skills players units being injured, it does mean they're going to be competitive and they're going to be in games and they're going to have chances. And like beating San Francisco at home means I think they can beat Houston now. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I when push comes to shove, right now I still don't know who I'd pick. But a week ago, I would not have picked the Vikings.
Right. It would have been right. This is a game I think everybody expected Houston to walk in and win. Yeah. And now everybody's talking about, and now I think some league executives are kicking themselves for putting that as a noon start. The
following week, they go to Green Bay. A week ago, I was like, they're not winning. They're not going to win in Green Bay. It's so hard to win in Green Bay anyway. Right. And now Jordan Love's hurt. Everything's coming up roses through 8 quarters for the Vikings. Like, they can win that game in Green Bay in a couple of weeks. Right. They play the Jets in London.
Jets are fine, but not great.
That game is winnable because it's in London, and it's just going to be weird. Mm-hmm. Where are they playing? Are they playing Tottenham? I think
so. I think so.
But anyway, like, all of a sudden, what could have been a 1-4 start, or we're talking about potentially week 9 being their second win of the season, they're 2 weeks in and have their second win of the season already. Like, games just became very winnable all of a sudden.
We mentioned this early in the season. Just go 2-2 in September. Just go 2-2. You don't need to go 3-1. You don't need to go 4-0. Just get a couple wins and stay above water, or stay at water level for September. Figure yourself out, and then try and go on a run. And they're already halfway there. They're playing with house money for the first month of the season. Basically, go, because again, they have a soft spot in the middle. Indianapolis looks a lot more winnable than it did earlier. Jacksonville looks winnable. Tennessee looks winnable. The Bears are a little shaky. Like, Arizona is good, better than last year, but winnable. The Vikings have a stretch in the middle of their season where they could rattle off a few wins here. So if they hang around 500 at that point, and then they go like 4-2 in that stretch, mm-hmm. Now they can get 9 to 10 wins and get a wild card spot. This is I'm not saying that'll happen, but now all of a sudden they've made it so, like we talked about last year, they gave themselves no margin for error by starting 0-3. And turns out they needed some of that, because if they would have won one more game, they probably would have been in the playoffs. Right. They have wiggle room to play with now, which is the most important part. All right, Corey, let's talk. Speaking of postseason, a team that's getting close is the Minnesota Twins. Their magic number sits at 11. Carlos Correa and Byron Buxton are back in the lineup, albeit they both kind of admit not 100%, but they kind of said it's now or never. We have to get the playoff spot taken care of. And their magic number is at 11. If you look at Fangraphs, basically it comes down to the Twins and the Tigers. The Tigers, in their final 9 games of the season, they have 3 with, or 12 or whatever. They have 3 with Kansas City in Kansas City. Then they have 3 over the weekend in Baltimore, and they just took 2 of 3 from Baltimore at home over this weekend. And then they play the Rays for 3 at home, and then they finish the season playing the White Sox at home for 3. Tigers have the second easiest remaining schedule in baseball. The Twins have a much tougher schedule. They have 4 in Cleveland, 3 in Boston, a team that's still technically in the playoff hunt, but they're pretty much falling out of it. Then you have 3 at home against Miami, 3 at home against Baltimore. What looks like the Yankees are probably going to clinch the AL East, is what it's looking like right now. So they probably have they'll maybe want to make sure they lock up the 1 seed or the number 1 wild card spot, but whatever. Corey, just on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being super confident, 1 being not confident at all, how confident are you the Twins are going to back into that last wild card spot?
2.5. Right in the middle. I mean, their lead is only, I think, 2.5 games.
2.5, but basically 3.5 because the Twins own the season tiebreaker over Detroit.
Sure. Okay. Okay. So that ups it up to like probably closer to a 4. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That confidence part of it. They almost got swept by Cincinnati. Not ideal.
It took a 5 RBI game from Brooks Lee.
Yeah. It took a 5 RBI game from Brooks Lee to avoid that sweep. So that's not great. They play. What was the series before Cincinnati?
They won 2 out of 3 with the Angels.
So the
Angels are the only team with the worst record over the last month. Than the Twins have been the White Sox and the Angels.
Right, but the point is like when going into the weekend, you felt like okay, they're winning ball games. Like it's just a math game, and it's just a race at this point over the final 12 games of the season, 11 game, whatever the Twins are at, and honestly, winning 1 out of every series the rest of the way is probably enough to get you into the playoffs.
Right. Well,
now it doesn't. It's not going to make me feel good about them making the playoffs, and I don't like that they have 4 against Cleveland. That's probably not going to go good. And Detroit has a really easy schedule the rest of the way. Like it's lining up that the Twins are going to have to catch some fire here. They're going to need to figure out a way to turn this around.
They need to play 500 baseball the rest of the season, and they've not been playing 500 baseball over the last month. That's the thing. No. It's like on its surface, it seems like just win half your games the rest of the way going forward. Which if they do that, again, magic numbers at 11. If they can even go 5, or they have 13 games remaining, if they can win 6, then they go 6 and 7. Well, that puts the magic number to 5, and that means the Tigers can only lose 5 games out of their remaining 12 the rest of the season. They have to go. They have to go 8 and 4. Well, that's tough. That's tough for them. And Tampa Bay is still feisty. The White Sox are pushovers at that point, but Baltimore is going to be trying to lock up that number 1 playoff spot, wild card spot. Still, we talk about with the Twins. I mean, they're going to play the Tigers sooner, so they're still playing for that even more. So, I mean, overall, this is a math problem. The Twins need to run out the clock. Cleveland's tough. Cleveland's still competing for that 1 spot in the American League. They're a game back of the Yankees for the number 1 seed, which is home field throughout the playoffs. If the season ended today, the Twins would be going to Houston for 3 games on the road. Best 2 out of 3 series there. Again, Twins magic number sits at 11. We'll see. We'll see what happens. 4-game series in Cleveland. Everybody but Simeon Woods Richardson is going to pitch for the Twins. We'll see Ober. We'll see Lopez. It's imperative you win those 2 starts.
It's also weird, CJ, because a part of the thing that's skewing my thinking about some of this is I do think they're going to make the playoffs. I probably answered that question incorrectly before. Like, I don't think a
lot of people would blame you, though, after the win.
But how do I actually feel about this organization? Like, how do I feel about the club is it's a 4 that they're going to make the playoffs on a scale of 1 to 5.
Yeah, your odds of a playoff run?
But how do I feel about this team in the playoffs? A 1 at most. Like this is a lame duck. This is a lame duck right now, and they're just begging to be taken out behind the woodshed. And it's. I mean, I want them to make the playoffs, but I'm also not really interested in the discourse about another Twins team that can't win. You know what I'm like. Some of the playoff discourse that happens amongst Minnesota sports fans, I don't really have much time for, because we're going to lose all perspective on the fact that this team kind of stinks.
Right.
They're kind of not real great at baseball right now.
Well, no.
If they get swept by Houston in the first round, People are up. See, same old Minnesota. It's like, no. This team is really just not that good.
Well, remember last year was the opposite, where they weren't good for most of the year, but the second half they finished well, and especially in September, they were like, you could feel them gaining momentum into the playoffs. And momentum doesn't really mean much, relatively speaking, like they do the numbers on this. Like, it doesn't matter what your record is going in, like in the last month or whatever, for any sport, but still, like, you felt more confident in this team a year ago than you do now, and they're going to win about the same amount of games than they did a year ago. So anyway,
what is the Twins record right now?
They are 79-70.
So, and last year they had 87 wins.
Yeah, something like that. 86, 87.
Yeah, it was 87-75 a year ago.
Yeah, they're probably going to finish with about 85, 84.
Right. And remember, it wasn't that long ago, CJ, we were talking about this team 3 weeks ago being a better team than they were a year ago, but being at one point third in the division.
They were in a 90-win pace, and it looked like there was a chance that they were going to, again, like the breaking point, I think, was that the breaking point was August 18th in Texas when Alcala came in with a 4-0 lead, and the Twins were going to sweep Texas in 4 games on the road. And then they were like, not only were they hot, but also like Fangraphs, even though the Twins were like in second or third place in the division, were like the odds-on favorite, according to Fangraphs at that time, to win the division. And
in the matter of 4 weeks, this team went from being a better team a year ago that won the division, but not having a chance to win the division, to they're having to fight their asses off to make the playoffs.
To beat Detroit, a team that sold at the deadline.
Correct.
So one last thing, and then we'll wrap up the show here. This is according, Corey, to Prep Red Zone, Minnesota, and it's talking about a Nevis football player named Eli Klimek. Of course, we talked with him in our season preview that you can find on the Hubbard Radio-Wadena YouTube page. He put this out on social media. He said, after a long conversation with my family, I've decided to commit to Bemidji State University. I'd like to thank God, my mom, my dad, and my coaches for all they've done for me throughout the years. #grind the axe at BSU Beavers football. He's been a standout back for them, linebacker, defending state champions, a team that's expected to make some noise again in 2024 for the Nevis Tiger football program, and not too far up the road, going up to Bemidji to play football. As a proud BSU alum, I say, Eli, welcome to the club. You are welcome. You're welcome onto the Beaver Banter podcast anytime.
Congratulations to Eli. Defending state champions. They're 3-0 to start the year. Beating Sabika in week 1, 44-12, beating Hill City Northland in week 3, 43-6. But the big game in their week 2, CJ, they beat Ogilvie, who was very good again this year, 18-12. So a 3-0 start for the defending champion Nevis Tigers, and the leader on that Nevis green and gold field every single week. He's going to get to at least keep the green stuff in his closet.
Yeah, going to be an easy drive for his family to go watch him up in the Chets. That'll be cool.
Nice. Congratulations, buddy.
This has been the Morning Sports Desk for Monday, the 16th of September.
The Morning Sports Desk, available on demand on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and WadenaRadio.com.